breakfast further introduces the setting and characters with a look at the inside of the temple, where the adult crystal gems live, and some of its mysterious inner workings. While the viewer is likely to be intrigued, Stephen himself doesn't care that much. His entire reason for entering this forbidden realm, whose door he can't even open on his own, is based solely on wanting to assemble his maternal figures for a family breakfast. A together breakfast. The plot starts out with Stephen making breakfast, except he's a little kid, so his idea of breakfast is a bit absurd. He makes a stack of waffles and syrup. When no one shows up for breakfast in a timely fashion, he adds popcorn, whipped cream, and a strawberry on top. It's bizarre and extremely unhealthy looking. I'm sure IHOP will add it to their menu any day now. Finally, Garnet warps in, but she can't stay. She has a scroll of some kind that she must destroy. This is never followed up on, but it might be about gem technology. Its imagery of hands and eyes does resemble the red eye and green hand, and its scribbles likewise resemble gem handwriting. From an overall series perspective, it strikes me as reasonable to presume that it pertains to the Gem War, but in its together breakfast framing, the scroll is presented as though it is a cursed magical artifact. The glyphs aren't simply presented as containing dangerous information about weapons, but as Lovecraftian horror, an artifact beyond human comprehension, and dangerous in itself. As we'll see, the scroll can take on different forms to fight as an inorganic weapon, similar to the living armor in Season 1, Episode 5, Frybo. According to series writer Joe Johnston, the danger is in the ink, which was made from powdered gems. This makes it something of a precursor to the clusters introduced in Season 2, but without the horror element of gem mutilation actually being featured in the show. As the show frames it, it's just a cursed scroll, in an outlandish fantasy premise that doesn't quite fit with the later show's science fiction framing. Whatever it is, Stephen thinks it looks neat, so he snaps a picture of it on his phone. Garnet promptly takes the phone away to destroy it too, vanishing into the temple. It highlights how removed the crystal gems are from human priorities. She doesn't give a thought to preserving the phone and simply deleting the image. No, that thing has to go. One imagines Garnet would hesitate by Season 6, Episode 7, Snow Day, once Stephen starts depending on his phone for adult responsibilities. Suddenly, Amethyst decides to prank him by pretending to be a cop, barging in, and trying to shoot him. Yeah, that doesn't quite hit the same way when you realize that cops frequently do that for real. The framing of the prank depicts it as absurd. The cop figure is purple, he says silly things in Amethyst's voice, and he has a water gun. Amethyst fires obvious water and Stephen does an exaggerated as he dives to protect the breakfast. I don't expect any kids to think that there's a serious threat, but the whole joke is in poor taste. It's not a problem unique to Steven Universe, as a Goofy movie has the same joke, with Pete barging in pretending to be cops, opening fire on Goofy and Max. But that at least portrays him as a jerk. Amethyst is supposed to be lovable, merely accidentally endangering Steven's prepared breakfast. It brings to mind the acronym ECAB. All crystal gems are boneheads. Boneheadedness aside, the cop form showcases the transgender and non-binary theme. Amethyst assumes a strikingly masculine figure with muscles and body hair. When she starts to change back, she starts by only changing the head and chest, giving the whole figure an androgynous appearance. It's a good way to sneak in the controversial imagery, as an incidental side effect of a joke distracting from the plot that Stephen is desperately trying to return to. It's about eating breakfast together. Yeah, just ignore that other thing. That said, I wish Amethyst could have picked a better subject for her gender experimentation. At least her luchador form doesn't make brutality jokes. Pearl sticks her head out of the temple to accuse Amethyst of stealing one of her swords. They bicker. Pearl says that she cleaned Amethyst's room, and Amethyst runs out in horror to fix what Pearl messed up. Stephen can't persuade Pearl to stay, so he follows her into the temple, jamming the door open long enough to enter. Gems don't have human needs to eat or sleep, and their personal rooms are all about aesthetics. Marie Kondo would love what they've done with the place. Pearl's room reflects her ethereal beauty with floating fountains, rivers, and pools, in which she keeps a well-organized assortment of swords. An assortment, if you will. The whole place is opulent, pretty, and graceful, just like Pearl herself. Within the interpretation of Pearl as white, these traits are often cited as an indication that the show is racist for presenting Pearl as a superior upper-class gem, in contrast to Amethyst and Garnet. I believe this is ultimately invalid because Pearl only has these traits because they are desirable to the gem upper class that once owned her, due to her backstory as a slave. She was once simply an ornament of other people. Pearl herself is working class, only utilizing her ornamentation traits as a form of self-fulfillment now, because her present circumstances empower her to do so. Her neurotic organization may well be an effect of her trauma, compelling her to bring order to her world when she grew up unable to control her life. However, the fact that her past as a slave wasn't even hinted at until season 2
Thank you. You can go now.
means that this perception of the show as being racist is a valid concern within the confines of season 1. Together Breakfast at least portrays Pearl and Amethyst as on a fairly equal level, with different interests, strengths, and flaws. But this criticism will be especially relevant to season 1 episode 20, Coach Steven. When Steven calls out to Pearl, she tells him to leave, opening the door for him. He doesn't listen, tries to wade out to her, and ends up falling down a waterfall thing down into Amethyst's room. It is a messy gemstone quarry filled with junk. It is reminiscent of both the kindergarten, where she spent her formative years, and Greg's storage unit, where she and Greg hung out to deal with their grief following Rose's death. It's not gone into nearly enough, but Amethyst is neurodivergent. She has a deformity and mental condition that I think is supposed to be a gem equivalent of Down syndrome and or autism. As an autistic person, I can relate to her, and her conflict with Pearl over being messy resonates a lot. Look at my living space. It's like Amethyst's room if she was a nerd into Twilight. Sometimes, the people who call Steven Universe racist don't just point at Pearl, but at Amethyst and call her messiness a bad trait, along with various other neurodivergent traits seen elsewhere in the series. This is ableist. Sometimes the messiness sparks joy, and that's okay. Amethyst teasingly tries to eat the together breakfast without waiting for the others, so Steven runs through the temple as she gives chase. Somehow they end up upside down. I'm sensing a thief in the cobbler influence here. He slides down a pole and ends up in Garnet's room, also the monster gem storage area, where Garnet prepares to destroy the scroll in a pool of lava. Like Garnet's personality, her room is very Spartan, but also in warm tones, hinting at the warmth beneath her stoic exterior. Amethyst and Pearl get to him and try to sneak out before Garnet realizes that they're doing something they're not supposed to, but fail to communicate the danger to Steven. Oblivious, he distracts Garnet, who messes up the scroll disposal. Its smoke turns into a monster that possesses the together breakfast.
Now it has all the power of a breakfast.
Yeah, this is a tad silly. The show will go to some great points of drama and horror, but this early on in the show, it needs to hook the kids at home, so it can traumatize them later.
It's horrible!
Yeah. Steven muscles the together breakfast into the lava. He may be starting to get access to his powers and getting some super strength, or maybe it's just a relatively weak part of the monster. Either way, Steven gets to come into his own to save his family, after putting them in danger. The gems take Steven back to the house, and help him make a new together breakfast, one twice as big. However, they can't eat it. It did just try to kill them after all. They decide to get pizza instead. I'm sure the pizzas will appreciate the business. Together Breakfast isn't my favorite episode. We can see it's starting to delve into horror themes, but it's still very simple and silly, and it's largely inconsequential. However, it does function as a foundational setup. We'll see more of the temple as well as more of the characters later, and what is revealed here lays the groundwork for that. Next time, Stephen and his friend Petey face a deadly enemy: capitalism.